Welcome to Maine, we're stretched to the bone. Prices keep rising, the paycheck stays prone. Inflation keeps knocking, won't leave us alone. They're selling the lie, groceries climbing, the gas tank is low. The bill's hitting harder than snow, but silence still blankets the truth. Where does it go? They're selling the lie. Housing is gridlocked from Portland to the county. Workers commute far past what feels soundly. Talk of solution comes yearly, not loudly. They're selling the lie.
Welcome to the Muddy Waters Podcast, where Mainers tell their stories, unfiltered.
Good afternoon, Maine. This is Chuck Ellis, and you're watching the Muddy Waters Podcast. The Muddy Waters Podcast exists alongside, as I often say, the Unquirer, who is joining us today. Richard, thanks for joining us, as well as the Maine Wire and other people around the state who are trying to shed light on what's actually happening. The mainstream media that's become a propaganda arm of the Democrat Party doesn't want you to see. And so we're here with, I would call it a little bit of a special episode just to kind of recap and talk about like the crazy things that are going on as a result of the ICE shooting in Biddeford. And since Richard has probably been studying the radical left more than most people would ever want to even consider, I figured he'd be a good person to, and I think he was on the ground yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, share a little bit about what's going on in Biddeford and some of the things that have been happening. So take it away. Thank you for joining, Richard.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, we've been watching all the stuff unfold in Maine over the past, few years. I've also spent a lot of time watching the far left agitators across the United States show up. They cross state lines, go into different protest areas, incite violence, work up the public. Like one of the big complaints they have right now is that there's too much of a right-wing presence in Maine, and it's not like Minnesota. And they don't have a massive crowd, and that the right-wing presence is pushing back and mocking them and making fun of them. You had Mercado, who actually just came out with a statement telling his followers and people in Maine to actually commit, openly just saying, beat them up, knock them out, get 5 of you, surround them, give them the Jake Lang treatment. He was actually really upset with Tim Bodnar. He specifically said that Tim Bodnar was able to actually hijack their protest, create a mockery out of it, and disrupt the entire thing, and there was no pushback from the crowd. Like, when I say pushback, I mean like beating him up, stabbing him, or whatever. The only thing that happened was someone slashed John Featherston's tire. But we've covered these people before.
Yeah, well, that's pretty interesting to say that. Like, at least I got as being the chair of the Cumberland County Republicans, I get some emails occasionally, and some people were mocking, the right's lack of response to the leftists. And it's interesting to hear that they're actually saying the leftists that are coming here trying to cause problems are saying that there's actually too much of an active presence by conservatives. I think they call us right wing. I try to reject those labels a lot of times, although some of the people that we're talking about definitely fall into that category. But typically we're talking about like people who just care about our country. But anyway, we're labeled as being radical right wing.
But remember, and so like when they operate in places like Minnesota, they don't have people like John Featherston, Steve Robinson, the Maine Wire, this massive apparatus that is actually pretty much an opposition, actually painting the real narrative. So over in those other states, all the controlled media got to paint the picture that they wanted. So and yesterday when we were at the protest, John Featherston's name came up over and over again. They're calling him a fascist, a Nazi. That's normal rhetoric, but the way that they were saying it, I kept listening and watching. I'm like, these people, the language and the attitude has changed. They're painting a target on him, and they want to have blood. You can hear it, you can sense it and feel it. I've watched so many of these. It changed from just going, oh yeah, he's a Nazi fascist, to F that guy, screw that guy. You heard it nonstop. And then, of course, someone took a skateboard, hit him. There was multiple times where people were circling around him. Today they slashed his tires. Last night, they choked. One of the people ran up to Nick's equipment, tried to steal it, break it, and then jabbed him in the throat. Tim, they surrounded him. But even with all,
You said, just to be clear, you said grabbed him by the throat, not stabbed him.
Well, then,
it sounded like you said stabbed him in the throat. So I just wanted to clarify.
It was like a combination. You can see it on Fox News. The woman ran up and went like that right to his throat. So it was like a grab thrust. But like instantly, we just seen violence unfolding nonstop, just from all of these things. And then there's been other small assaults that's happened already.
And basically, all that the conservatives are doing is showing up to these places and being conservative and existing.
Yeah, well, we've developed a different strategy, right? So like the thing that doesn't work is a bunch of conservatives staying there with flags and just going, we support ICE. Or even if they don't support ICE, just conservatives standing there. Our strategy has been mockery, making fun of them, like in different ways. When we actually expose what they do. So like the Maine Wire, you, me, everyone that's involved in this, we've developed a different strategy that is so quick, lightning fast, and we actually counter the controlled media before they can actually control it. And these leftists that have come to Maine have instantly recognized the problem. Mercado actually goes on longer saying that they weren't able to give the correct interviews to the media and the correct outlets because they were constantly being like distracted by Tim and other people. He brought up John. They don't like the fact that it's going to be difficult for them to actually start a true far left, riot like they did in Minnesota, New Jersey, other states. I think they're going to have a difficult time here.
Well, I think one of the beautiful things about Maine is that we are a small community mindset, and there are some radicals here for sure, but I don't think it's anything that you don't have enough of a mob. I don't think here in the state of Maine. Like if you look at, like we've talked about this before with a lot of like the Nirav Shah rallies and the Graham Plattner rallies. If you look around, like you're primarily dealing with a bunch of older people, right? That are not. You don't have a lot of these younger radicals. I think they can ship some of them in, but they need at least a base of people here. When we
were in Biddeford, there was enough of them. You could see them. There's a lot. The younger ones were showing up. The far left ones. Yes, we have a smaller population, but those are the ones that definitely want to commit violence. They're the ones that you could see them. They were like circling John. They were circling Nick.
I saw some of that stuff.
Yeah. And they'd be masked up. And because the way they work is that they work as like a collective mob. And when they just keep repeating the same person's name, they'll just repeat it back to each other. One person will be like, screw Nick Blanchard or screw John. And then another person will say it and they'll go back and forth. Collectively, they go, okay, that's a target. That's our right-wing target. Whoever takes that person out in whatever manner, it could be violence, destruction of their property, they're going to be praised within the group. And you've seen this all over the United States. They'll go after anyone that is effectively either mocking them, exposing them, covering them. There will be more attacks on right-wing people in Maine, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I knew it yesterday.
Yeah, no, I mean, seeing what was happening yesterday and just like how quickly it was fomented, like they pulled people together. Like it's, I don't know, you almost kind of get the sense that they've just been sitting back waiting and hoping that something like this would happen.
Yeah,
you hate to say something like that, but it just seems like that's the reality. And I saw some of the videos that you had posted. There was that one of the woman who was basically saying that running over an ICE agent is justified. I think that was an elderly lady who's in a wheelchair or something along those lines. And some other situations, like it just seems like they don't really care about the truth. Like a lot of people on the right are saying, look, we don't have enough details right now about what happened. We have the official report, which was essentially that, an individual tried to weaponize their vehicle against an ICE agent, and they were shot and killed. People on the left, I had a video that I saw was posted of a man kind of describing what he saw happening, which was like it seems to corroborate the story that a guy was trying to weaponize a vehicle against ICE. In that video, there were comments on it that were attacking him, essentially saying that he was lying, that there was no vehicle there, that all the reports show that the officers were running beside the vehicle and all this other kind of stuff. But I haven't seen any actual video evidence of what actually happened yet. I think the videos that they're referencing, I went and did some research, were videos after the shots had already been taken. And yes, the agents were running beside the vehicle in order to ensure that they had at least damage as possible. And then they tried to perform, whatever medical aid they could to the person who had been shot and unfortunately passed. But
they don't care about the details. That's obvious. That's been obvious for years.
Right. Right. Well, but I think it's important to highlight. I know that not everybody sees what we see, right? Not everybody understands and sees. And so like a lot of times when I'm communicating in here, I'm communicating from the perspective of people who haven't yet figured it out, don't really understand how serious of a situation that we have growing among the radical left. I mean, and like how dangerous they can potentially become.
Yeah, no, you are right. Sometimes I get stuck in the bubble because we've seen all this stuff, and a lot of Mainers, you can tell when someone doesn't really know what's going on because they go, well, I'm going to go debate with them. I'm going to have a discussion, try to meet them halfway. And then that's actually what awakens a lot of them. They realize that there is no place for debate or discussion with them. They look at you as an enemy. Why would you sit there and debate or have a discussion? They do not care. We're past that point where there's not even a point of having a discussion with. If someone's reasonable, but the majority of them are not reasonable, they're looking at this as like a war and trying to seize pretty much control of the United States, Maine, all political power, and they will use violence against anyone that they choose to.
Yeah, I think it's different when we're talking about your friends and neighbors and people that you know. Yes, as much as you can debate and have conversations with them. But yeah, when you're talking about these like radical mobs, it's not. There's no.
Well, even your friends and neighbors that are Democrats, a lot of them won't join in with the violence, but they'll create mental gymnastics and justify it or look the other way. They will. You've seen this Canada, UK, Europe, America, everywhere. They'll go, oh, they deserved it. They shouldn't have been there. They'll make any excuse possible. Do you want to play the video of Mercado? He's in Maine right now, in Biddeford.
Yeah, I can pull that up.
Yeah, most people need to see this. Like, they don't even hide it anymore.
All right, let's pull that up. One second, I'll get that sound on that for us.
Chuds show up, that's him in his fucking Jeep. That's him. But they're lucky that those marshals were so nice. I mean, what would honestly stop if we organized like a group of like 5 of us that when these chuds show up, we just fucking, because like at the end of the day, like I feel like these fucking idiots need to be knocked the fuck out. And that's the only way they'll actually learn, is if they like feel it, Like you guys can see what happens to Jake Lang, right? So just like copy paste that with all of them. Like all of them. Like they should not feel comfortable doing that. Because he wasn't just, it's one thing if you're like a right-wing absolute chud and you're like quiet and you just shut the fuck up and you're just like standing there, right? At that point, it's like you drop them then. There's nothing really to try to coax or to try to calm and like knock them out, and then you drag them out of the way. Like that's what I would do. Like if it was my protest in Minecraft, that person would be taken out of the equation and then drag them off to the side so that way they can go recover and make sure they got water, but get them out of the fucking way. Because that guy was able to like absolutely control the scene like the whole time he was there. I can talk to Jolly again anytime, so we can remedy that, especially as the week goes on here. But I'm gonna get to Biddeford now, guys.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy, isn't it? Not even hiding it, just outright. Like, that's a call for violence. This is actually illegal what he's doing. You cannot say those statements. It's one thing, he's outright commanding people to commit violence. It wasn't even just like walking around it or skating it. He directly said, this is what we need to do. Knock them out, drag their bodies out, right? They were upset because the marshals were actually, I didn't see all of it, but they were upset that they didn't get the same treatment that they got in Minnesota, right? They're not liking the environment they're getting in Maine. at all.
Yeah.
They're not happy. And did you see how angry that guy was? Like, he couldn't even focus. He's made posts about Tim. He's made posts about John. He took his YouTube. He made a whole post on YouTube all over the place. He can't let this go. He does not like what he's encountered here in Maine. And not even just Tim. He watched the stuff from yesterday at Biddeford. He didn't arrive yet, nor did all the other out-of-staters. But they watched what happened with Biddeford, and they saw Nick Blanchard. They saw John Featherston. They saw the footage that we had. What we did was we exposed them and either ridiculed them just by showing who they are, exposed them, and it's absolutely diffusing and hurting their movement so quick because we knew, we've all been watching this. We knew what to do immediately. We hopped in our vehicles. We go, fuck these guys. We're going down there. We're going to show how they really are. Let them speak. Let them be violent. And they are not liking it. That guy, you can see the agitation on his face. He is not liking what he found in Maine.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. The other thing is he's so casually, like, he's angry, like you said, but he's also so casually talking about the idea of just knocking people out and dragging them out. It's almost like he thinks he's in a game of Minecraft. He made a reference to Minecraft.
You know why they do that, right?
No.
So it doesn't work. But back in the day, people used to say, the leftists would use Minecraft, and they say, yeah, we want to commit violence in Minecraft. And they would use Minecraft as like an analogy to a protest, a state, an individual. They said, oh, imagine if Chuck Ellis was in Minecraft. What would I do to him right now? I'd probably take the pickaxe and get him, in Minecraft. And if you can Google it, the Minecraft reference is just a way for them to actually instruct violence through a video game reference. They've been doing that for a long time. But the reason he's so casual, you pointed that out, is because in Minnesota, they were completely allowed to run rampant. The stuff I was watching, the police would stand by, they'd attack, beat up any right-wingers. Here, he was also upset with the leftists, right? The people that at the protest. He was upset that they weren't giving Tim and other people the Jake Lang treatment, which is mob them, beat the hell out of them, knock them unconscious, stab them, do whatever. Because Tim's a character, but a lot of them, they surrounded him, but they weren't doing anything. And it showed that in Maine, they don't have that same strength and power and control like they do in other states. And a lot of us have actually worked pretty hard to alert the public and get people ready for this. That's why I covered Mercado and these other lunatics back in January. I made posts about it. I reposted it, but I covered them because I knew that one day they would come to Maine. I knew that something was going to happen. And these little fuckers were going to go as fast as they could, come here, try to incite another riot and movement. And they're not too happy with the outcome so far.
Well, there are so many beautiful things about living in the state of Maine. And I think one is that we've been able to mobilize and protect ourselves, at least against that, up until this point. And we've got our problems for sure. But I love the state of Maine and generally the people of Maine. I think there are some radicals here, but I don't think it's the majority at this point. I think the vast majority of Democrats, maybe some of them will justify violence, sure, but I don't think many of them would be interested in committing it themselves. I think that's at the very least more in the minority here, as you've kind of noted that they didn't do any of these things. They kind of let Tim do his thing and talk. Maine is a bit different. Hopefully we were able to continue to be so. But
well, and what's the population of Southern Maine? You probably know, right? Roughly.
The population. I know how many voting people there are in the state, which is just short of 1.4 million. Yeah. So I would say Southern Maine is probably about 1 million people. Probably. I think 750,000 people live within 30 minutes of Portland. I think I heard that.
That's a better. So 750,000 people, right? 750,000 people live in that surrounding area of Biddeford and Scarborough, Portland, or whatever. 500 people showed up. They're not. It's not like in Minnesota where you had 5,000 people show up, right?
Right.
They do not have the numbers here. They don't have the support level, and some people will see like, oh my God. Look, there's all these people in the streets, but it's 500. Even the city, let's just look, the city of Biddeford. So just the city of Biddeford alone has 23,000 people in it, right? 23,000. Just not Saco, not Scarborough, not Portland, not anywhere else. They got 500 people. by going to the streets, they create this illusion of power, an illusion that they actually have like this scary tactic that they can actually enforce power. But the actual people that support them like this is way lower than most. They're a very small fringe minority. Most Mainers just want to be normal people. These lunatics need to be driven out of the state, absolutely driven out of the state.
100%. And let's hopefully we that will happen. You know, again, this is one of those situations where I'm just so thankful for John Featherston, his daring, the Maine Wire, and though I don't always agree with all the other guys, I appreciate their willingness to kind of go in and kind of you know, do some of the things that they do best.
Well, and the thing is, Tim and Nick, they're bombastic and they do like. But the thing is, they don't hit people, right? They're not punching people, they're not stabbing them,
right?
And
what's interesting is I think Tim and Nick probably make people afraid that they're gonna hit, but they don't. They're actually not violent. They're not violent people. They just speak really loudly and boldly and aggressively sometimes, but they are not violent people.
But instead, they've had assaults on them. I've seen probably with Nick maybe 5, 6, 7 times. He's been not even just light ones where someone taps him, full on breaking equipment, punching, doing whatever. Same with Tim, quite a few. A lot of these leftists will resort to violence the first moment that they can find that it's justified. They just want to, in the public's eye, if they can be like, you made me angry enough, they will attack. And that's why Mercado, this fucking lunatic from Minnesota, comes to Maine and is like, we need to start knocking these people out. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, literally, if we were in a sane world, the police should track this guy down at least and have a talk with him and say, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You're coming to the state of Maine and you're instructing people to punch nonviolent people that you don't like or agree with. Even if Tim or whoever is saying the most wildest things, you don't have that right to go instruct your base to go knock them out, surround them, and then drag their bodies off. He's openly calling for violence. I mean, at this point, that video should be sent to Scarborough and Biddeford police and wherever, and just give an alert that this guy is a violent individual. He himself might not commit the violence, but he instructs others to. And they act as like these fake journalists that go out there and they go, oh, I'm just recording. And then they make little video clips saying, yeah, you got to go out there and punch them. So it's like a duality that they're trying to play both sides as activists and journalists to instruct their base. And it should be allowed. We should push back about it in Maine. We don't want that level of escalation to happen here.
I don't think it is. I think it is illegal to try to incite violence, right? Like, I think that is something. So they 100% should be stopped and talked to and detained or whatever. This guy should, because that's not okay, obviously. You know, I think Maine is a little bit different. I think, like, you'd made some comments about some marshals, and I don't kind of completely understand the context, except like I would assume that one of the things that will be different in Maine is, even though local law enforcement is not allowed to you know, coordinate with ICE or help ICE or whatever, they are allowed to try to maintain peace and order. And I think the police in the state of Maine will 100% aim to do that, which is probably something that we'll be surprised to see over against what they did in Minnesota.
So I'll give context to that. So when he was talking about marshals, usually in other states that are Democrat strongholds, the police will actually remove any right-wingers, even if they're not physically doing anything wrong, but out of their safety, right? So they weaponize the police, the marshals, the sheriffs to go, and if they'll surround a right-winger, they'll be screaming at them, and then the police will actually come and pull that person out if they're there. They'll pull them out and remove them from the location and force them to stand off to the side to protect the far-left protest. So what they were angry about was that people like John Featherston and Tim and other people were allowed to actually just operate and walk around and, you know, talk. And, you know, Tim was like kind of yelling in their faces a little bit. But they don't like that. They like that control. They have the control. They have the police force on their side, even though they say defund the police. The whole purpose of that is to actually get the police to take a knee to their movement, like they did with BLM, right? So they don't actually want to abolish the police or defund the police. They want the police to work for them. And what they do is they make threats like, we're going to defund you, we're going to attack you. And then in a lot of police departments will go, whoa, we don't want that. And they don't have to comply with the right-wingers, right? These right-wingers will never say that to them. But the left will say, well, if you don't adhere to us and you know, take a knee to our movement, we will actually start defunding you. We'll remove this police chief or this one. So they put a lot of pressure on the police departments. To kind of summarize that, Mercado, the video that I actually posted from January when he was out in Minnesota, bragged in the video that the police will not touch him or do anything. He literally bragged in there, saying that he pretty much has immunity to go around and act like a freaking lunatic. He's driving. It's all on video where this guy commits endless crimes, right? He's flying through the city, committing crimes nonstop, and then brags that the police will not do a single thing to him. And we covered that back in January. We knew that this guy was going to show up here and start to incite violence here too. And like clockwork, boom, shows right up. Couldn't miss the opportunity to come to Maine to start causing a problem. Fuck these guys. We got to just drive them out of the state. You have Jolly Ginger, another freaking lunatic that you can see all over the internet, go in there, riling up the mob to actually attack people. And they're here. They did not wait. It took 24 hours for them to get to Maine. These are like, oh, here's an opportunity. They don't even care the details. They don't even care about ICE. They actually don't care about any of these things. They don't care about immigrants. They are socialists, Democrat socialists, or Marxists that are using these opportunities to actually rally up a base of some people that do care about those things. But the actual socialists do not give two fucks about any of these. They don't care about immigrants. They don't care about LGBTQ. They use these people as political pawns as human shields to further their political agenda. That's what the DSA does. Right. Yeah,
it's. I think for the average person sitting at home, I think a lot of people have a hard time believing that there's that many people that are that crazy, and that's what some of these people who align themselves with the DSA believe. But I think like if you're a student of history and you understand how these types of movements build and grow, that is exactly what happens in communist growing countries. Is they the places where communism comes, which is the current version of communism in seed form, we'll say, is was initially socialism, but now you get the Democrat Socialists of America that are a radical organization that is aiming to do radical things. I mean, in Cumberland County, you have the current district attorney, Jackie Sartorres, which I'm led to believe is essentially part of the DSA.
She is.
She's one of the indivisibles. And she has literally said that she's not going to arrest people, or she's not going to arrest people. She doesn't do that, but she's not going to prosecute people who might potentially be people that would be detained by ICE. And so and what does that mean? Well, it basically means that they're going to let black and brown people, or people of color, as they like to call them, away with crimes so that they won't get deported. Which is absolutely that's how you get bedlam. That's how you get crime like crazy. And what's fascinating about what's going on in Biddeford is there's a shooting, an ICE shooting. We don't know the details, right? We have the official report. We have an eyewitness who testified, who was there. And though the leftists are trying to say that person wasn't there because I don't know, they have some fake information. Maybe they have real information. I don't know. We don't have any actual shots of the incident happening at this point, as far as I'm aware. So we don't necessarily 100% know what's happening, but the leftists are acting as though it's certain that this was an intentional murder of an individual, which is absolutely ludicrous. And one of the things I thought was funny, not funny at all, but John Featherston found I think he's the mayor of Lewiston, and asked him for a statement yesterday. I saw a video about that, which is fascinating because, as we all know, so I highlight this because we don't actually 100% know what happened. We have some reports. They seem to suggest that somebody who was supposed to be deported weaponized a vehicle against ICE agents. We don't know 100% for sure, and that person was shot and killed. We do know that children are killing people and are shooting people in Lewiston all the time. And where are the riots? Where's the
they don't care because they don't care about any of these things. They don't even care about the immigrants. They literally do not. They have to. So what happens is that any type of movement it doesn't even matter if it's left wing, right wing, or whatever it is. If you're going to take control of a government or society or get people to support your movement, you have to have something called moral authority, right? So that's why there's so much virtue signaling. So they have to say, we're here for human rights, and they have to create the facade of their movement caring about those things. That's why there wasn't even hesitation. You could find out, I don't think this is what happened, but you could find out the immigrant pulled out a gun and shot at the officer, and they shot him. They still wouldn't care. They do not care.
Right.
Our side spends so much time discussing, the logic of their reasoning and trying to find out the truth and the details. They've already moved on. They're just using it like, perfect moment to actually have our protest. Maine hasn't really done that great for the leftists, having like mass turnouts and such compared to other states. This was their moment. Like you said, they've been waiting for this. They have to jump the gun. Even if they find out that all the details were completely justified, they'll just say it wasn't justified, right? Because they don't actually care about the truth. They never have.
Right.
You know, and do you think any of them are actually even looking at the details? When I was at the protest covering this stuff, whenever I was talking to people, most of the time they weren't even talking about ICE. They weren't even talking about ICE or the immigrant. Like I was able to get a couple of interviews when you kind of pull it out of them. Most of them actually were just there because they wanted to have a riot or protest. Like they wanted to scream at Susan Collins. Like they wanted to go after people like John Featherston. They wanted to go after right wingers. There was less of a focus. Like even when they had speeches, that all the energy kind of fizzled out, and they knew that. They just wanted targets. They wanted blood. They wanted to storm the office of Susan Collins. They wanted to attack John Featherston. They wanted to attack Nick Blanchard. They just want right-wing conservative targets to attack. That's it. Because in their mind, they're playing war, and to get some sort of public coverage or moral authority, they have to play it under the guise that they're actually using this. They put on a mask of like, we're here for the immigrants. And while they're holding their signs, they're like, yeah, fuck these people. Let's take, and then what they do is they eventually seize control of DSA, like Mamdani or whatever, gets into power. They then start passing all socialist policies. They start opening the gates, flooding in foreigners, allowing them to vote, taking control because they have to appeal to foreigners because they don't have the amount of people they need in America, right? That's what happened in Canada, UK, Europe, Australia. The socialists or the far left, they don't have the support within the countries. So they have to use the foreigners. So this kind of works out well. They want to abolish ICE, not because it's ICE. They just don't want immigration control. They need to have as many of these foreigners enter the country and fight on their side. So that's why Decca Delac is going after Susan Collins. Like she's she might have voted on a bill, but man, they're more angry with Susan Collins than they are with ICE agents and police and everyone else. Like they were chanting, "Lock her up,"
which is crazy because you remember, it's interesting back in December and early January, right? ICE started to hit Maine, and it got wild and crazy with conservatives like being very pro-ICE and liberals getting very upset and being very scared and afraid of ICE. And what happened? Susan Collins went and met with whatever her name is, I can't remember now, and got them to back off on ICE. So like the idea, like they got ICE to like kind of back off to a different approach, right? Mm-hmm. That was more of their historical, traditional, like slowly try to find the people that they have, whatever. But because they were here in force and they backed off of that, right? So you're talking about going after and holding accountable the one person, Angus King did nothing, Shelley Pingree did nothing, but make anti-Trump statements because that's all that she's capable of doing at this point. Jared Golden did nothing, but Susan Collins actually like got ICE to change their approach to one that was a little bit less scary, I guess, is one of the ways to put it. It didn't mean that they stopped doing their work, but they weren't here in force the way that they were before. And they're saying to lock her up. And I just think that's pretty, again, as you noted before, they don't really care about reality. They don't care. They just care about, because like the idea is they want to create chaos. And then they want to say that they're the ones that are going to fix the chaos. They want to create chaos, blame the chaos on Republicans so that they can win elections and that they can take power.
Yeah. Susan. So the reason they go so hard at Susan Collins more than they do ICE or any ICE facility, like they were louder at Susan Collins' office because she holds a seat of power. She holds a seat of power, a position of power that they want. They need that Senate seat so that they can actually gain more control of the United States. That's the only reason. And then from there, that's the only reason. So they don't even. It's so funny. Like, I was watching the protest at the ICE facility, and they're just kind of like, they're just doing speeches and all constantly Susan Collins, Trump. They just want the position of power. They want to put one of their own in her seat and have that person there for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But man, Maine definitely got pretty wild pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I was, obviously, I heard about. I was actually midway through the day before I heard about the shooting yesterday because I was busy with a number of things in the morning, and I end up hearing about it. Don't get a chance to watch a lot of stuff until later in the day, and by then there's like all these like crazy protest stuff that you're reporting on, John Featherston. Again, it's crazy. Like the times in which we live is crazy, right? That one side of the aisle, like I'll just highlight this, right? One side of the aisle is advocating for allowing people who are not legally in this country to run over police officers because they disagree with those people being deported. And it's I mean, that moment that we're in right now is just wild, right? And like, I think it's always going to be sad. I don't care what reason the police are shooting someone, right? Like, I don't think I don't like people dying in general. I don't think altercations with police are a good thing, and it's sad when anybody is killed. However, like if somebody's trying to, if the official story is not true, then and ICE, as the leftists have claimed, are just like trying to find anybody that they can who's black or brown to kill, which seems to be what they're suggesting, which just seems quite wild to me. But if that's true, look, guess what? Republicans are against it, by the way, just for the record. We don't want violence against people for no good reason. We don't even want a good reason to have violence against people. But if
they know that, everyone knows that. Our side is always apologizing or qualifying, like, no, we don't. Like, you don't even need to make that. Nobody believes in that. They know that our side doesn't believe in that, but they get our side so scared that we have to. Like, I'll talk to right wingers and they'll be like, "Oh, but I don't support that." I'm like, obviously you don't. Nobody thinks you do. No one thinks our side does. You're just so scared that you think that people think that, so you have to constantly like reassure it. But then by constantly doing that, you almost validate a little bit about their accusations, right?
So I will say that some people do believe it. Like, I mean, I'll tell you, like, I had some conversations after the election in 2024 with some people who I know from Christian circles, people who are Christians that believe the Bible, and so therefore should have certain morals that would lead them, I would think, not at the very least, maybe to not vote for like a Democrat like Kamala Harris, who wants to advance agendas that are very anti-Christian. Somebody showed up at one of her things and said Jesus is the reason for the season, and she was like, I think you're at the wrong rally. And so just this very, like people who should, in my opinion, be able to. But anyway, I was having this conversation with them, and I was commenting on the fact that, like, no matter who won the election, I felt like there was potential for violence, anyway, like the point that, and they were like, yeah, from Republicans, right? And I was like, no. Right? Like, what instance do you have that you can point to about Republicans being violent, right? And the only thing they could ever point to is January 6th, right? Which is like, unfortunately, there are so many people that just believe that what they see on the news and think that was an instance of Republicans being violent, which ultimately it wasn't. Again, it was. Anyway, I don't need to get into that. But the point is, like, that's what they point to. And they still believe that means that the Republicans are the ones that are violent, despite what we know to be reality, which is that most of, again, the vast majority of recent memory, all the violent stuff is actually coming from the left, including shootings. Like, if you go back in time, you could see some, people on the right or people that would have being considered right-wing doing some things. But that's ancient history at this point, ultimately. So
I just default don't believe them when they say that. Because the thing is that
these are people that I know, and I believe them. I think they're like so.
So if you show them examples of the left being violent, what do they say?
I mean, I think unfortunately they're not trusting anything that they don't get that doesn't come from the mainstream media, and like I don't like, you know, yeah, I that's a good question. I mean, I could ask that question. I'm in relationship with these people, and I'm actually like baffled because I was having a conversation with some of them recently, and I'm just trying to be like, I don't understand how you, given like the values that I know that you have, how you, because if somebody asked me the question, like, you'd never vote for a Democrat, would you? And I was like, I mean, not in their current form. I mean, they're like wrong about everything right now. If you look at all the 80-20 issues in America, the Democrats are on the wrong side. And I mean, socialism is terrible economically. Their economic policy is ridiculous. Their energy policy is terrible. You know, the things like transgender treatment of minors. There's no way I'm ever going to get behind that, especially without
when you talk to
parental
them,
consent.
So those people that you're really close to, what did they say about Charlie Kirk's assassination?
Nothing of significance.
They weren't like
they weren't worked up by it. I think they like, you know, some people called were upset that we were putting flags at half-mast for a political celebrity. That's one of the people. That's the.
I mean, have the Democrats ever done that? Like, if there's like a popular activist or something like that.
I mean, when was a popular activist like murdered on the left, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
What, you know what I mean? Like like the only thing that you can get to the point of being of the significance of what happened to Charlie Kirk. I mean, people talk about JFK, RFK, you know, goes back like a long time, and I mean, those were people on the left. I mean, you know, they were Democrats. I mean, they were centrist Democrats. By today's standards, they were right-wing radicals, but they were centrist Democrats, right? And I think everybody mourned when they were assassinated. And so it's very different, right? Obviously, our world is crazy, but yeah, I can't think of anything where someone on their side died that I can, you know what I mean? Can you think of anyone?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
I can list a lot of people on our side that's died over the past 5 years that have been killed.
Yeah,
there's been quite a few. You've had people shot in the streets, like what was it during BLM riots? You had the far left guy shoot the Patriot Prayer guy right in the chest. The guy even said he's looking for a Trump supporter to kill. He went and shot him in the chest. I think that was Seattle or Portland, Oregon, or those. You've had countless ICE agents shot at or shot. National Guard people shot and killed. ICE agents' vehicles rammed into. You've had political violence nonstop with people on the right, like Charlie Kirk, and at different protests. People like even like right-wing protesters that were beat up, stabbed. You have Jake Lang's constantly attacked. I mean,
Riley Gaines being trapped in that building, which was at the university. The experience that the woman had here, it wasn't as bad, but there was a woman that worked under Riley Gaines. I can't remember her name right now, but she was up at Orono and had, I mean, it wasn't some of the other places, but yeah.
But they know that but they don't hide. It's funny because a lot of people don't take the time to go find videos or the posts or the information about these people. They don't even hide it. They actually believe in political violence. It gets part of.
Well, I mean, this goes back to like a statement that J.D. Vance made when he was hosting the Charlie Kirk show right after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which was that like data shows that it's like I think it was somewhere around 30%. I can't remember the exact number of Democrats are okay with political violence. It was between 25 and 30%, where like 3% of Republicans are okay with political violence, according to polling data. You know, Charlie Kirk had shared before he passed that, like, again, it was in the high 20s, 28% or 27% or whatever it was, were okay with political violence. But when it came to Donald Trump and Elon Musk, with the two of them, it rose to nearly 50% of Democrats are okay, would have been okay with and supportive of political violence against them. So there's like the practical reality of people saying, no, I'm not for political violence. Oh, but for him, I'm for political violence, right? Like, so even within their party, whereas like, so it's a small smidge of a problem with some people that consider themselves on the political right. But yeah, it's a huge problem. If you can just say that 1 in 4 Democrats is okay with political violence, that in and of itself is just an incredibly frightening statistic.
Are you covering the protest this weekend? I know the leftists plan to do one, I think, on Friday at 4 p.m. I have to get the location. So this weekend could be pretty crazy. I know a lot of people from Massachusetts. They're coming up. A lot of them will take the train or whatever, come into Portland. I think it's 4. Someone sent me the thing. I have to get the information, but there's going to be definitely more protests, especially once the weekend hits.
I don't think I will. My brother's coming up from Texas, and we're for a vacation, and we're spending some time as an extended a big family. So it's unlikely that I will be attending any of the protests. But I will be finding clips and sharing them in certain places, even though I'll be busy up there doing that. But yeah. No, it seems like whenever all these crazy things happens, I have something going on, and some people would say you should drop everything and go do it. But you got to take some time.
Take your brother to the protest.
Yeah, that would be interesting. He's a former military, so be safer that way.
Well, you can do just follow the instructions of Mercado and the leftists. You guys are allowed to be there. No. You guys are allowed to be there as long as you shut the fuck up and don't speak, right? He said, yeah, they're fine if they go there and they stand off to the side and shut the fuck up and don't speak. That was his words. You guys are allowed to go there and observe. You're just not allowed to speak or hold signs or do anything. That's their rules, right? Well, no. I mean, did you see the video clips of Biddeford letting the freaking leftists take control of the crosswalks and guiding traffic? I need to post more video clips of that. It was so crazy. Like, there's almost accidents. People were just like going. It was a pure chaos. I was going back, and there's so much video footage, and you just have 1 or 2 ladies trying to direct traffic. There's a police cruiser off to the side, just sitting in his car watching while she has a vest on, acting as a community police officer, directing traffic, telling people where they can and can't go. You had an elderly lady that accidentally went past her, and the crowd like blocked her and it was like, no, you're not allowed to come this way. It's so crazy that the city of Biddeford allowed them to actually take control of the streets and control the traffic. I actually thought that was pure insanity. And then they eventually backed off, and then it got even worse. Cars were going, people weren't using crosswalks, people were just standing in the streets, cars slamming on their brakes, other ones almost rear-ending each other. Police, nowhere in sight. They just let it happen. They allow the leftists to police themselves. It's called community policing. It's pure bullshit.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, one of the things that people don't understand, something that is like I've come to understand over time, is that the police departments are really, they have, they're kind of underneath the guise of the, city council or mayors or whoever is in charge of that situation. And, I don't think Biddeford is controlled by a bunch of conservatives, right? And so, they're also a bunch of cowards, right? They'd rather allow some chaos than run into a situation where something else happens, right? Because they're afraid of how violent and crazy these people might be. And so, I don't know. I don't want to speak for the Biddeford police. I am thankful for all law enforcement, and I hope that we get them, maintaining some peace and safety and ensuring that this stuff doesn't get out of control again. But when in a developing situation, especially for police officers, it's hard to know how to handle that type of situation, especially where, as you've kind of noted, we haven't dealt with a lot of this in Maine historically. I think we dealt with some of it. I know that we did in Portland, in particular, during the BLM riots. I had a coworker who decided he was going to go and check it out and just see what it was like. But when it got dark, he would leave because it got dangerous then. Mm-hmm. So there is some that's happened in the past, but it's not obviously anywhere near what's happened in other states. And it's sad, scary, whatever you want to call it, and more that it's happening now. And
isn't it interesting how none of the Democrats have actually called out the political violence against people like John Featherston? Like his stuff isn't even minor at this point. Like they are outright slashing his tires, hitting him, assaulting him, and it's not even like he's an activist. He is just a news reporter that's just filming and doing interviews, and hasn't been a peep coming from their side because they support it. You can support one way that Democrats will support violence is by just not speaking about it, right? They won't call it out. They won't bring attention to it because they're giving a wink and a nod. Like, think how crazy it is that one of them went over there and slashed John's tires. Isn't that pretty wild?
It's absolutely wild. I mean, the fact that it's gotten to that point, right, is it's just unacceptable. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm constantly amazed by how, like, I know I see the evidence I see what's potentially coming. And honestly, like, not in regard to these specific issues, but I've been concerned about violence from the left really for the past 20 years. I mean, it's become much more acute over the course of the last 6 years. But like, I knew that there was potential for it based on the dogma of some of these groups. And how radicalized they are, but like seeing it begin to happen is like, it's still hard to believe, if that makes sense. Like I know intellectually, but like seeing it's hard to believe with my heart, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, it's going to get interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah. So there's more protest. Yeah. That guy, the other thing in that video that we showed, that's worth noting, in case people missed it, is that like he's saying he's here all week. So there's that, which seems to indicate that they're going to be up to. And you mentioned that there's stuff going on this weekend. I'm still kind of hoping. I keep saying this, and I'll just kind of switch gears for just a moment, just to be funny. That the Democrats put forward Angus King as Angus King III as the replacement for Graham Plattner. They won't. But it would be fun because then I can show up to the No Kings rallies. And, have my anti-Angus King III sign. No Kings, no Kings. But no, it's interesting that all of this is happening at the same time. That debacle is happening. Taking a little bit of the pressure off the Democrats and the hot mess that they are. As they try to replace the world's worst candidate in Graham Plattner.
Yeah, it'll probably be Shaw. My guess is it'll be Shaw, maybe a small chance of Troy Jackson, for sure.
Yeah, I think it just depends on how strong the socialist wing of the party is.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in the primary, like 65, 66, 67 percent of the voters in the first round selected a DSA endorsed candidate. Shaw got most of the rest, but if they unify around one candidate where there's not going to be, or I don't think there's going to be ranked choice voting, I think he doesn't get it.
I think they said there would be ranked choice voting.
So it seems like if that's the case, I would think that Shaw probably won't be the one that comes away with the nomination, just because he's not endorsed by the DSA.
Yeah, and I think there's probably gonna be influence from like Bernie Sanders' mom Donnie down in New York. So there's gonna be out-of-state influence, putting pressure on the Democrat Party in Maine to actually start to convert and conform to the DSA. So I mean, we've seen that already for years at like Portland and other locations where DSA took control of the city. But now that the Northeast is actually now being led, they even call him Daddy Mamdani or whatever on Reddit in Maine. They go, well, what does Daddy Mamdani say? I mean, he was naturalized 8 years ago, a foreigner trained in Maine at Bowdoin College through the radical leftists, then went to New York, became mayor, and he is now the tip of the spear for the Northeast. And so his influence and his party's influence, the DSA, will play heavy on the outcome of what happens in Maine, who gets nominated. Because I think in the Northeast is actually in some ways more radical than the West Coast and the Great Lakes Socialists. So you have the West Coast Socialists, the Great Lakes Socialists. in the Northeast, they've actually been able to radicalize and go further than a lot of the places out there. So in different ways.
Further than Chaz?
Yeah. So out there, they have a lot of political activists and movements that are out there. In the Northeast, it's a little bit more organized, I guess, in a weird way. So like you had Under the Cover of Darkness, Graham Plattner training trans shooters, right, in the woods. Like that's not debatable. Or training them how to fire rifles. Yeah. You had Mamdani, which is the #1 most prominent DSA member now in the entire country, now runs the entire city of New York in the Northeast. You have Shenna Bellows, who supports him, Troy Jackson, who supports him. You have Vermont, that's completely taken over. Massachusetts has Mayor Wu, which is a DSA. So in the Northeast, you actually have a unique system where it's actually a more established control in a way. It's hard to actually put words on it. So each region of America has a different form and different environment of the leftists and socialists. So if you, and I don't mean to ramble, but like when you watch the debates on the West Coast, a lot of the candidates, they weren't as extreme as in the Northeast. So a lot of the West Coast candidates would say stuff like, oh yeah, we do need to lower taxes. Property taxes are a problem. There's a lot of just like normal Democrat talking points. If you listen to the activists out here, they're calling for the next step. So what happens is each one will actually try to outpace the other one to get to the positions of power. In the Northeast, they've been bubbling up for a long time. They saw a moment in history where a lot of the Northeast is now moving very hard into that Democrat socialist position. More so that on the West Coast, you actually see a little bit alleviating. The Great Lakes socialists, they're just kind of stagnant. There was a lot of attacks because of Tim Walz. You had all the problems with like the Somalis and stuff like that. So they're kind of in a quagmire in certain ways. The Northeast is almost more dangerous. And I've always suspected that because I knew a lot of stuff was happening here that was actually in some ways more radical than what was even being done on the West Coast. I mean, there's no surprise that some of the most prominent and powerful DSA members exist in the Northeast. So someone like Gavin Newsom, yeah, he's a Democrat and he takes a knee to them, but he's not one of them. He's not coming forward saying or even enacting. He's enacting crazy policies, but he's not going radical enough that you see in like New York, Massachusetts, or wherever. I mean, have you even followed like Mayor Wu, the governor of Massachusetts? Mayor Wu is of Boston.
I've seen some of her. It's her, right? Like, that's yeah. I've seen some of her stuff, and she's quite radical, I would say. Yeah,
extremely. But I haven't. She's full on far left.
Yeah, full on DSA aligned. Whether she officially says she is or not, but yeah, I've seen some of the stuff that's come out of there. It's very.
Well, and then you had two situations in the Northeast where you had just recently one of the Mamdani's members or whatever was communicating or trying to communicate with the CCP, the Communist Party of China. And then I think it was last year they had a statement saying that they need to start.
Wait, what are you? I thought you were talking about the recent thing. So this is separate from.
The situation. So the recent one, the Trump administration blocked the meeting of Mamdani's Democrat Socialist member to actually meet with the CCP. A year ago, there was
Iran. I thought you were saying CCP. I thought it was.
No, yeah. I'm sorry. You're right with Iran. And then a year ago, you actually had documents that came out where DSA members were saying that they need to start creating ties with the Communist Party of China and working with them. And then on the DSA website, and they have it clearly documented that when you're a DSA member and you get into a position of power, that you are collectively pushing forth the ideals and you rule as a collective DSA rather than an individual. And what that means is that you don't step out of line. You don't try to do your own thing. You don't try to do your own form of rent control or socialist policies. You actually must obey the party policy, the single party rule, and act in governance that complies with the DSA ideology, which is just a form of like far left communism.
Right. Yeah. I mean, DSA is just masked communism. Yeah. It's Marxism. It's communism. It's whatever you want to. It's
So and then Hannah Pingree isn't DSA, but she's DSA allied, right? So
Right.
after this election, we may have more DSA members. Like pretty much the Northeast could be essentially controlled by the DSA. We don't see that on the West Coast. There are DSA members. They're struggling to get a mayor that's a DSA member, right? Or people that are on city council. We have in the Northeast, freaking Portland and all these other cities were freaking putting them in left and right, all the way from Bangor, Augusta, school board, city councils. You have it in Massachusetts, New York, Vermont. So like this is where the hotbed. It's actually building very quickly in the Northeast, which is why I think a lot of people are getting blindsided by what's happening out here. They just didn't know that this was happening on the cover of darkness. But
I mean, again, especially like you said, most people in Maine are good people and they just want to be left alone and they don't want to and I think they don't realize they've just allowed themselves to believe that this could never happen here. It's one of the biggest lies that we could ever believe is that something like that could never happen here. And I was one of the people who for years didn't think if you had told me some of the stuff that I now know is going on in our state was going on here 8 years ago, I would have said you're crazy. There's no way that's happening, right? And I remember people that I know as this stuff started to come out, it started to be clear. I was having conversations with, they're like, that's not really happening. Okay, maybe it's happening some places in Maine, but that's not happening in Scarborough, right? And then somebody who was on the ground in Scarborough, for instance, was like, no, it's happening, right? And so there's so many people that that still think that America and Maine is what it used to be. I mean, they're stuck in the 90s and think that people are like they were in the 90s. And unfortunately, they're not. I mean, unfortunately, we are a radicalized, the left has been taken over by this radical group that have learned from radical groups in the past, communist groups like the Bolsheviks and how they took over, and other groups like that, and they're trying to mimic them. It's that's how frightening the current moment is. And if you don't think so, you need to wake up. That's the short version. But if you're watching this show and you got to this point in the episode, you probably already know that. But,
right.
But your friends may not. So, crazy world. Well, thank you for, doing all the stuff that you do. I mean, if you guys don't follow already, you want to mention the other socials where they can find your content?
Yeah, you can list your TikTok, you can list your Instagram, the Facebook page, the X page, the YouTube page.
Yeah. So Maine X Community. What's it called on YouTube?
I think it's just
Maine X Community on Facebook and YouTube. You can find all the links on the Maine X Community Facebook page. Southern Maine Republic on both Instagram and TikTok, and Unquirer on X. Just thank you for all the stuff that you do, that you're pushing out all this content. We're doing what we can collectively to try and compete against the narrative that's being pushed out there by the radical left, and hopefully be able to shift the state more red. I mean, not because anyway, I could say so. I could do some qualifications, but I won't. The Democrats are insane. And we need to defeat them. That's just the short version. We can argue, we cannot agree 100% about everything and still recognize that the Democrats are crazy and need to be defeated. That's the reality. Yep. And we need to unify around that.
You talk about sometimes there are normal, reasonable Democrats. I would say Jared Golden was probably one of them, right? And what happened to him? They hated him. I mean,
a big part of the reason he's out of office is because of the hate he got from his own side. Yeah.
They push it. If you're not complying. That's how you can tell who will comply with them when it's a politician. So Hannah Pingree, they're okay with her. She doesn't rock the boat. She complies with what they say. Someone what is it? The Pennsylvania senator, Fetterman.
John Fetterman, and before him, you had during the Biden years when the Democrats controlled the basically everything, but you had two senators that refused to. Just get on board with whatever Biden wanted in Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. Joe Manchin, I can't remember where he was at, maybe Virginia, West Virginia, something like that. And then you had Kristen Sinema out of Arizona, and they harassed these people to the point where both of them left the party and quit. Right. And now Fetterman, they're going after him. for a lot of reasons, one of which is that he was very anti-Graham Plattner.
Yep. Look how quickly they swapped him out. They don't even care. They don't even care about the allegations. They're just like, oh, he's not going to help us achieve power or seize a seat. Flip him over.
He got behind in the polls. I mean, that's the biggest thing is he got behind in the polls. And so they were like, okay, well, we thought maybe he might have this thing, but now he's behind in the polls. And so they pushed for the release of information that they then used as their excuse for removing him, in hopes that they might be able to get somebody else in there that at the very least won't hurt them. And that's where I think we need to make sure anybody who can, that we continue to bring up Graham Plattner's name, that we continue to use it and tie it to every single Democrat here in the state, because they all supported him. They all looked at the litany of red flags and said, no, don't believe your eyes. And then all of a sudden they said, no, believe your eyes. See, he's bad. We're going to get rid of him. See, we did the right thing. We got rid of the bad guy.
Yeah.
Come on. Stop playing. But anyway,
it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
I mean, yeah. So anyway, well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you guys all for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow to talk Protect Girls Sports and that whole thing. So
and thank you for running Southern Maine Republic on Instagram and TikTok. Like, I don't have the time to put all this stuff out, and you've done an awesome job keeping that going. So,
thanks. It's easy. I just steal your content, and then sometimes other people's content.
Yeah, it works. It's just about getting the information out. I could care less.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
100%. So, thank you, and we'll see you all later.